When you think of October 31st, what comes to mind? I'm guessing it's candy, costumes, maybe some spooky movies, right? But what if I told you that one date holds the key to a religious revolution, a modern political tragedy, and a $13 billion industry? Okay, let's dive into the secret history that's been hiding in plain sight on your calendar this whole time. First, let's just talk about the sheer scale of modern Halloween. According to the National Retail Federation, this year's spending is expected to hit a record-shattering $13.1 billion. Yeah, that's billion with a B. It's an absolute commercial juggernaut. So where in the world is all that cash going? Well, it really breaks down into three huge categories. Costumes are leading the charge at $4.3 billion. Decorations are right on their heels at $4.2 billion. And of course, you can't forget the candy, which comes in at a very sweet $3.9 billion. And how are we celebrating? Well, if you look at the most popular activities, handing out candy is the #1 thing we do. But check this out. Dressing in costume and decorating our homes are basically tied for second place. It just shows how much we all invest in the whole look and feel of the holiday. It's become this massive shared cultural event. But that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? With all this modern-day fun and all the spending, is that all there is to it? Is October 31st really just a day for candy and commerce? Or is there something, deeper, something more significant buried under all those plastic skeletons and chocolate bars? All right, let's start by digging into its ancient roots, because the real origin story might not be what you think. This first layer of history is all about saints. And maybe not so much about that festival, Samhain, you've probably heard of. I know what you're probably thinking. Come on, everyone knows Halloween comes from the ancient Celtic pagan festival of Samhain, right? I mean, it's the story we've all heard a million times. But what if that popular story has it completely backwards? So here's where pop history and actual history really split. The common belief is that the church just came in and slapped a Christian label on the pagan festival of Samhain. But historical records actually show something different. The Christian feast of All Saints' Day popped up in Rome, totally separate from any Celtic traditions. The date we call Halloween was originally just the vigil for that feast. And the clue is right there in the name. Halloween is just a squished-together version of All Hallows' Eve. And hallow? That's simply an Old English word for a saint or a holy person. So from the very beginning, it was the evening of preparation for the big Christian feast of All Saints' Day. Okay, so you're asking, if the date is Christian, where did all this spooky stuff come from? Well, that stuff got blended in way later. Things like carving lanterns, which were originally made from turnips and potatoes in Ireland and Scotland, and playing little fortune-telling games, those were all local folk customs. It wasn't until Irish and Scottish immigrants came to America in the 1800s that they brought these traditions with them, and they started to merge into the holiday we know today. But the story of October 31st doesn't stop with saints and turnips. Oh no. Because for millions of people, this date isn't about ghosts at all. It's about rebellion, a day that literally split the Western world in two. Let's go back to this exact date, October 31st, but in the year 1517. A German monk named Martin Luther walks up to the castle church in Wittenberg, and he nails a document to the door. Those 95 theses were a direct challenge to the power of the Pope and the Catholic Church, and they lit the fuse for what we now call the Protestant Reformation. But why October 31st? It was pure genius, a brilliant strategic move. Luther knew that All Hallows' Eve was the night before a major festival, All Saints' Day. The church would be absolutely packed with people. He picked that date to guarantee his protest would get maximum exposure. It was basically the 16th century version of going viral. And what was at the very heart of his protest? Well, in Thesis 62, he took direct aim at the church's practice of selling what they called indulgences. These were pieces of paper that supposedly got you less time in purgatory. Luther came out and said, look, the real treasure of the church isn't something you can buy. It's the free grace of God. I mean, that was a truly revolutionary idea. And because of that, to this day, for millions of Protestants all over the world, October 31st isn't Halloween, it's Reformation Day. It's a major religious holiday celebrating the moment that redefined their entire faith and honestly changed the course of European history forever. But the history of this date has another layer, one that is far more recent and far more tragic. We now have to shift our focus from a rebellion in 16th century Germany
to an assassination that absolutely stunned the world in the 20th century.
So let's jump forward in time, 467 years to be exact. On October 31st, 1984, the date picks up another much darker meaning. It becomes the day that Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, was assassinated.
The facts of what happened are just chillingly direct. While she was walking in the garden of her home in New Delhi, Prime Minister Gandhi was shot and killed. And here's the most shocking detail. The assassins were two of her own Sikh bodyguards, the very men who were sworn to protect her life.
Now, this assassination wasn't a random act of violence. It was an act of revenge. Earlier that same year, Gandhi had ordered a hugely controversial military operation called Operation Blue Star. The goal was to remove armed Sikh separatists who had fortified the Golden Temple, which is Sikhism's most sacred site. The raid caused heavy damage and many, many deaths, and it led directly to that violent retaliation on October 31st.
So we have commerce, we have religion, we have rebellion, and we have tragedy. All of it compressed into a single 24-hour period. It's pretty incredible when you think about how one date on the calendar can hold so many different, powerful histories all at once.
So in 1517, October 31st becomes a day of rebellion. It's about a single act of protest that ignited a firestorm, fractured Christianity, and sent Europe down a completely new path. Then, in 1984, it becomes a day of tragedy. An act of political violence born from a deep, painful conflict that sent shockwaves across India and the rest of the world. And then there's today. For most of us, it's a day of celebration, a massive commercial holiday almost completely disconnected from its deep, complex, and, well, often dark historical roots.
And that's really how history works, isn't it? It's not a single story that gets erased and replaced. It's layers. You have these ancient folk traditions, which get a layer of Christian observance put on top. Then that becomes the backdrop for a religious revolution, which is later overshadowed by a modern tragedy. And now, all of it sits underneath this thick, glossy layer of global commerce. So the next time you see a jack-o'-lantern or a trick-or-treater, you'll know the incredible weight of history that this one day carries. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secret histories are hiding in plain sight on our calendars, just waiting to be uncovered?